My name is Jennifer McClain. I went and participated in the Boston Women's March for America at the Boston Common in support of all the things I'm for because I'm afraid that they're jeopardized. Things like climate justice, racial justice, economic justice, women's rights, and it was very heartening to be joined by so very many other people. So after the election, I started seeing information about a march proposed right after the inauguration. And at first I was interested in going to Washington, D.C., but I felt overwhelmed by the logistics of it. And when I heard there was a march in Boston, that seemed more accessible. And I worked with some people at my church, the First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church in Bedford, to organize 2 buses to go into Boston. I expected there would be a lot of people there, and I felt that it was important to travel there with people I wanted to stand with because I thought we'd not be able to find people in the large crowd, which turned out to be true. So about 90 odd of us took 2 buses from Bedford yesterday morning, including Sabrina and my other daughter Natalie and my husband John. Our minister, his wife, and many other members of the congregation went with us. Several of them are close friends. So we arrived at 9:30, and it wasn't too crowded. And crowds trickled in, and it got less sparse. People I knew from many, many circles in my life were showing up in Boston or in D.C. or in San Luis Obispo or New York City. People went wherever there were marches. People went to be heard, and that was very encouraging.
I'm Paulette Schwartz, and I also was at the Boston Women's March yesterday. I went for many, many reasons, partly because I was so upset about our recent election and what was happening in our country. All the values that I thought we as Americans in this democracy stood behind were being assaulted. It was important to stand up. It's been a long time since I've been to any kind of protest march, but this may have been the most important one of all. And part of what it meant to be there was to connect with so many other people who shared my point of view. All of a sudden after the election, I think most people I knew were in some kind of shock. And as soon as I heard that this was going to happen, I knew that I had to be part of it. There were several groups going in Arlington, and I was part of organizing our Democratic team to go. And mainly we all met at the train station and went in masse. By the time we got there, there was a very, very big crowd. I don't think any of us ever expected to see so many people in one place. And I've been to other marches, and this was very, very different. And I was impressed by the numbers, by the fact that there were a lot of men there, even though it was a women's march, and there were people of all ages. It felt there was true diversity, and everybody was in a good mood. It was not the angry reaction that I think some of us were still holding on to. I think it brought out the best in everyone, and I'm just still thrilled to have been part of it.
My name is Sabrina McClain. I went on to the Women's March yesterday. I went because I feel that in our democracy we have to go out and protest when we're upset with something in the government, because otherwise we're not going to be able to change anything. And I'm upset that we have a president who is able to insult so many groups, and that he's allowed to be president even after he brags about sexually assaulting people and says we should have a Muslim registry. And so yeah, that's why I went and protested. And when I got there, I was kind of a little bit wondering what was going to happen, because this is the first time I've done something like this. We spent a lot of time listening to speeches, and there were a lot of good ones from people like Elizabeth Warren. She was there. That was pretty awesome. And there was a lot of people there, which was impressive. Made it a little hard to move around, but it was worth it because we got to, I think, send a message that we would not tolerate the sort of bigoted behavior that a lot of people are afraid is going to be coming from the White House. I'm a little bit at a loss of what to do next, but I do plan to protest again if I have to. I also plan to donate money to causes like Planned Parenthood, climate justice groups, all the things that will be threatened so that they can carry on even if they don't have the support of the president. And also I'm going to be able to vote when I turn 18, so I plan to do that as well. It's the first campaign I was involved in, definitely. So I gave money to the campaign for Hillary Clinton, and I made phone calls on behalf of Hillary Clinton, and I can't remember how old I was when I met Elizabeth
It was when she
Warren.
was running.
Right.
So it was
4 years ago?
Yeah, so and you're 13? No.
Yes, so I must have been about 13 when I met Elizabeth Warren, and she went to go meet with some people in Arlington, and my grandmother lives in Arlington, so I went with her. I shook her hand. It was pretty awesome. And she told me she was running for Senate because that's what girls do and that I should remember that. I try to be aware because I think it will have a big impact on my future, and I'm very concerned about that.
I think of myself as an optimist, and I do think there is some hope here. I think the more people who are engaged in the political process, the better off we all are. And I remember just so often hearing people say to me, oh, well, I'm not a political person. You're human, and we all live together, and these are important issues. And I think more people are becoming aware of that.
So I went on my first march when I was in college. When my mother came with me, we were trying to remember because it was a while ago, but I'm pretty sure it was an abortion rights march. And it's really very nice to take my own daughters on a march and have a similar, it's unfortunate to have a similar opportunity because we thought we'd already addressed this. But the fact that my mother and my father as well are active in the Democratic Town Committee, are out there and trying to make their voices heard is encouraging because there are a lot of times when I look around and feel powerless personally, but seeing that there's a way to channel my energy is somewhat hopeful, somewhat encouraging. Maybe we can actually try and get back on track. So I think that my parents have been a model to me of continuing to stay engaged. I find it encouraging that Sabrina and Natalie are both aware and engaged and have such a strong sense of right and wrong and compassion. And I find that very encouraging. And I find it actually whenever I see their peers and the kids I see in different environments, that they accept the presence of kids that were not mainstreamed when I was a kid, that they appreciate the inherent dignity and worth of each individual, that they don't say, well, that person is inferior because of any one of many reasons. They just accept people, and that makes me hopeful. It does feel a lot of times like we're just saying the words, but then when I see the kids implementing the concepts, it's very reassuring to feel that it is somehow sunk in, that it's not just that they're parroting back the rhetoric that we've told them, but that this is how they live their lives.
Yeah, I think I'm very proud of you and John because I think you've always been a model of those values. And it's times like this when you start to realize what those values are and think about them and put them into words. But I think it's very much a part of who you are. And unfortunately, we can't take these things for granted. We have to be able to get out there and stand up for them at this point.
I'd like to understand how people could support a man who only wanted to destroy and not to make. It seems that he's gone and filled his cabinet with people who are also focused so much on taking apart the infrastructure of the government. I find that very scary. I'd like to think that people who supported him were feeling a sense of despair with the situations that they were finding themselves in. But I've been trying very hard to understand how they could believe the rumors about a woman who's been smeared for 25 years and overlook the truths about a man who's There's videos that we've all seen of him doing things and saying things that are abhorrent. There's a long record of him failing to honor contracts and deals with people. And I don't know if I could have a conversation with somebody in a way that wouldn't put them on the defensive. But I'd like to know where they are, that they think that this is actually going to make their lives better. And I have put a lot of thought in this, and I've been trying to understand, and I still don't understand. I guess I'd like to understand what they want and what they hope for. Maybe they see something I don't, because I'm still looking.
I'm going to make a nerdy analogy right now. So when I get a test back and I have a bad grade, I always end up spending sometimes going, oh no, this is horrible, I'm never going to get into a good college, and I'm going to it's going to be terrible. And then I'll go, okay, start calculating how good I have to do on future tests and how much I need to work and all that sort of stuff in order to still get a good grade. So I feel like sometimes, this is on a much larger scale obviously, but sometimes I'll be thinking oh, this is horrible, it's gonna end up being awful, and then I'll start thinking okay, what can I do so that I can alleviate this and make it so that it's not going to be that bad?
I do have a part of me that still feels angry, still feels election was stolen and the things were manipulated and lies were not called lies, they were kind of danced around. But on the other hand, I would also like to find a way of understanding more about what people were feeling. I think they reacted very much on a more gut level rather than a rational level in some way. But that's how people make decisions very often. And I would like to understand more of that. I think, for better or worse, I live in a bit of a bubble here, and it is hard to know how to get beyond that and to understand more. But I think that is a first step. We need to think about doing that more. I generally do feel hopeful because I think that is a little bit of who I am as a person. Also, I find myself working with groups, and it's important to find a positive way of looking at things. Otherwise, people kind of give up and feel frustrated. So it helps to think positively, to motivate oneself and to motivate others. It also feels to me that this election is going to be such a turning point that people will have to make a decision about where they see themselves going, where they see our country going, and I think people will pull together.